Animus! Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive video. I'm Ed Rodriguez, creator of the Animus draft building card game, and in this episode we are going to be taking a deep dive into Animus Shattered Fantasy, which is core set 2. For many people this has been a long anticipated expansion, because this expansion delves into what's going on in the fairy tale realms within the Animus universe. If you've watched the other deep dives and some of the lore stuff that's going on, you know that the multiverse itself has been fractured because there's entities seeking power to use that power for their own avaricious desires. And so the multiverse has been fractured. Everyone's kind of battling for, some people want to continue that and use it for personal gain. Some of the entities want to actually reverse that and fix it. In this set, we're just going to see what's going on in the fairy tale realms, because the fairy tale realms are real within the Animus universe, but they're not exactly how you envision them from your stories, and we're going to check that out here. And essentially what I did with this set was I wanted to take known fairy tale characters and just sort of reinvent them, just using my weird imagination, and with the great talent of Nevaeh Tolliver, I think we made something really fantastic. I'm super excited to show you this, and let's just without further ado, let's just jump right in. If you need to get caught up, go to the Zero Budget Geek YouTube channel, look up the official Animus playlist, and you'll see tutorials, overviews, and gameplay of the game. And all of this is in preparation for the launch coming on Halloween. So let's just go at it. So the Shattered Fantasy takes place, I don't know why I use this image, but it's like a shattered thing. Shattered Fantasy kind of has a little bit of a snowy theme, at least on the packaging, not really in the game. So like I said, the fairy tale realms exist, and the fracturing of the multiverse now means that people can go in and out of the fairy tale realms. You can travel to them, away from them, you can teleport characters from them. It's as real as our own reality, and the entities are going to use that to their advantage and call upon these heroes and villains of this area, and or of this universe. So, and I just remembered why I use this image, because it's sort of fractured. Now, Shattered Fantasy really actually just isn't just one realm, it's actually multiple realms that we're going to explore here. So you can think of it as it's not just one cohesive universe, but it's a bunch of separate universes, and the thing that ties them together is that the fact that they're not just fairy tales, but literary or actually even urban legend characters, as we'll see. So let's just skip past this image, because this doesn't really tell you much, and we'll go into, I think we're just jumping right into our entities. All right, so what game is complete without a Cthulhu appearance, a Lovecraftian appearance? I promise there isn't a whole lot. In fact, this might be one of the few. Actually, no, there's a couple Lovecraftian influences. All right, but we got the man, or it, the thing, Cthulhu, the sleeper of R'lyeh. I've never known how to pronounce that, the sleeper, but I wanted to be accurate. That so by the way, the characters that you're gonna see here, although they're taken from fairy tales and they're reinvented by me and Nevaeh, we took pains to draw inspiration from their original stories, in a way that represented the characters well, but also showed that we're doing a different take. Now with Cthulhu, what are you gonna do different? I didn't really want to do anything different other than use Nevaeh's art style, which is just so lovely to show he's such a scary character, and I think that's what we did here. So what does his lore say? A cosmic entity that slumbers down in the dark depths of its prison, the sunken city Relay. A fracture in the multiverse has woken it up and released it from confinement. So the sleeper has awoken because of the fracturing of the multiverse. He was chilling down there, and now he is back. And one thing that I love about this artwork, and I don't know if you notice, I'm gonna just zoom in here to show the scale. There's a full-on ship there by his face, so as he's coming up out of the water. So just to give you a little thalassophobia, is that the right word? All right, what's his ability? Tactical. Sacrifice one of your cards in play, then damage any card. So this, I would say this entity is one that is probably better in the hands of a more experienced player, because sacrificing your cards is essentially going to be giving points to your opponent, but perhaps that one damage can be often very consequential in this game. Don't ever sleep on that. And so this is sacrificing one of your cards to ensure that something else dies or gets close to it, and that can be very powerful and pivotal in this game. However, sacrificing one of your cards is, it's dangerous. You're giving your opponent a possibility, a path to victory. So with Cthulhu, you want to pair him with you'll probably want to pair them with cards that benefit from dying. So cards with death effects are usually pretty good, because you'll sacrifice them and then you'll get two benefits out of sacrificing them: the Cthulhu ability and their death ability. Mind you, you do have to use that ability. You have to use that ability before they actually die, because you're the one that killing them. So essentially, your cards with death effects will have like 2 life. You can look at it that way, but they get like double usage out of them. And really, that's the main thing you probably would look at wanting to get cards with death effects. Other than that, maybe you want cards that can prolong the life of your cards, setting them up so that you can sacrifice them, although that's not as interesting. But basically, that's Cthulhu. You can sacrifice one of your cards to deal damage. It's a hefty price, but targeted damage that is potentially repeatable can be quite useful. So don't underestimate it, but I would say this is better in the hands of a more experienced player. Moving on. All right. Well, we didn't really go into the lore. I mean, basically, Cthulhu's waking up in the midst of a cataclysm that is connecting all the fairy tale realms. What do you think he's doing? He's gonna mess with them, and because of that, we've got Santa Claus, who is the Winter Warden. And he is a good but fearsome spirit of winter. He keeps the natural balance of the fantasy realms. However, his wrath against those that would destroy the natural world is unmatched. So that's why he's always around, but he's usually doing his usual thing, bringing happiness to the world. However, with Cthulhu waking up, he's realized it's time to get stuff. What did I say there? It's time to get tough. Time to get stuffed. Yeah, he's gonna stuff Cthulhu, because that's who he's going after. He is not going to let the Lovecraftian elder god wreak havoc with his fantasy realms, and he's stepping up to do something. Our version of Santa Claus is basically like a barbarian that is just looking to kick some ass. All right, what's his ability? Tactical. Look at the top card of any deck. You may reset it. Again, another card that's a little bit better in the hands of a more experienced player. This is going to give you information of either your deck or an opponent's deck, which can be quite useful. And the ability to reset it when you want is also quite useful. Often I see people I suspect people will use this card mostly on their deck most of the time, particularly because you can reset the card. And so this means that Santa Claus is very good with cards that have reset abilities and or ambush cards. So the ability to cycle through your deck multiple times is really good. The fact that you're getting some extra info is a bonus, and you can potentially use it on your opponent's deck just to see what's going on. But I think more often than not, it's a little bit better to just be sure of what you got going on. I mean, because remember, most of the time in most games, you may have seen the opponent's cards already if you were doing a regular draft. Although in solo you won't get to see that. But I would say focus using this card on your own deck, especially if you've drafted reset ambush cards, and you should do extremely well. That's a good combo. Moving on, we got Dracula, the cyberpunk vampire master. If it wasn't clear, by the way, we're starting with the entities. So here's a different take on Dracula. Dracula has survived millennia by convincing the world she didn't exist. Over that time, she has amassed incredible wealth and influence and now aims to conquer the multiverse. I need some water. So she's a cyberpunk vampire master. So we've envisioned her in her realm of the fantasy realms. It's a futuristic cyberpunk setting, and she's basically like a rich CEO of a very powerful blood bank, among other businesses that she has. And with the multiverse fracturing, she is aware of it and is trying to figure out how to best use that for her purposes. But again, is more about not revealing herself. However, entities actually can identify other entities, so that kind of puts a damper on her, like, kind of stay quiet and hidden thing. So she's she's gonna take a more direct approach. And what's her ability here is reaction during combat. If combat totals are equal, you may heal your card in that combat before or after damage is assigned. Both cards still deal damage as normal. That is a long way of saying that her cards essentially win ties. But the fact that they technically heal as part of that is a little bit of a benefit for triggering any kind of effects that trigger off a card's healing, and so forth. So it's a very minor thing. Essentially, you can just look at this card as it wins combat ties, but as a slightly different, little technical benefit to it. And how does that play with her abilities? It's supposed to represent like she's sucking the life out of them. She took damage but sucked life out of them, or rather her minions are. Her minions are vampires, basically. She's turned them into little vampires and they're sucking the energy off of them. By the way, that's what I meant to do with the others. Tie how their effect is towards their to the character. So Cthulhu's pretty obvious. He requires sacrifices. You sacrifice your cards to deal damage. Sacrifice something to gain power. Santa Claus, he knows when you're naughty or nice. He gets to peek in on your life. That's his ability there. And like I explained with Dracula is essentially she's turning her minions into vampires, and then they basically have a bloodsuck ability if they can get close and latch onto you, which I'm envisioning a tie is, right? They tie up, and boom. That's pretty much it. Let's move on to the next character. Grendel's Modor. On a mission to breed the perfect warrior, Grendel's mother has spawned a multitude of mutants. With the multiverse fracturing, she intends to swarm all of existence. So, this is Grendel's mother, the Wasteland Brood Queen, but we call it Grendel's Modor. So this is from the Beowulf folk tale, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's a fairy tale, it's more of a folk tale, I think, right? I don't know what the difference is, but anyway, so in Beowulf is a hero. He fights a beast called Grendel, and there is mention of Grendel's mother. But in the original story, Grendel's mother was never named, at least to my knowledge, according to my research, was never named. She was just called Grendel's Modor, which in the original language just means Grendel's mother. I took that literally and just used that as her name, Grendel's mother. This is how it was originally spelled, Grendel's Modor. So that's what we went with. All right. And so we are using the Beowulf sort of folktale here, and we are placing it in a sort of futuristic post-apocalypse uh desert wasteland realm that's sort of like the Fallout games and the Mad Max films. So she is the Wasteland Brood Queen, and she is creating a army of mutants. So let's look at her ability here. Reaction: after one of your cards is killed, flip it face down in the same position. It triggers death kill effects. The face down card becomes a spawn with 2 melee, 1 flank, and no type or abilities. If a spawn ever has any damage, discard it without triggering death kill effects. A spawn can attack if its original card attacked this turn. So we've seen this effect before, but it was on a nemesis. Now we have it on an actual, and that nemesis was Rosa Negra, by the way. Now we have it on a player's card. However, it is slightly nerfed. The version on Rosa Negra is a bit more powerful, very slightly. This is a little bit more balanced, but essentially all your cards have essentially an extra health and and potentially a couple extra attacks left in them, but they're not very powerful. So what would you want to pair this with? There's nothing specific that comes to mind that I would say, oh, you should pair this specific thing with that. Your cards have extra health, so potentially anything with damage mitigation is probably really good with her. Any kind of healing or damage shifting, because you can make it so that you have a really sort of high health pool wall that your opponent has to get through in order to win the game, right? So if you can think of it as like, I don't even have numbers, I'm just gonna pull a number out of my head. Like if a player needs something like 20 damage total in order to win the game, her default ability is just making that higher, because you still have to kill them damage them one more time in order to kill them and have them go in the discard pile to count. But if you're healing your cards before they even become a spawn, again, it's more health that they have to get through. So at best, I would say that's what you want to pair this entity with, is some damage mitigation, damage shifting, and healing, and that should make you very resilient to most strategies that your opponent can pull out. What else can I say about her other than I like to zoom in this. I'm so stoked with Nevaeh's artwork. It is some of my favorite in the whole series. And we had a lot of fun creating this character. We wanted to create sort of a mother figure, but not necessarily like an old crone. Just something just very cool. A cool sort of queen with all these spawn mutants around her. All right, let's move on. We've got Mask of the Red Death, one of my favorites. Actually, no. It is my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story. Always have been a huge fan of it, and had a hard time. I always knew I wanted the Red Death in the game. I never knew how I wanted to portray it, and I don't even know how I came up with the idea. I think it was watching the Quentin Tarantino movie Kill Bill, and they reference the main character as the Bloody Bride, I think, at one point, and I was like, yes, we will do that, an actual Bloody Bride. So let's look at that real quick. And just if you know the story, you know that at the end, I believe at the end of the clock strikes midnight, and that's when Death is there and kills everyone. So that's why we have the clock there, to show midnight. And I just want to really zoom in on this. Like, this is just such a cool look that Nevaeh came up here. I mean, I was basically the art director, and I dictated this, and then Nevaeh used her talents to just take it to the next level. So in the original story, the main character removes the mask from Red Death and then just sees nothingness underneath, and we've used that here, but we made her look like a bloody bride. And Nevaeh just did this weird hand pose here that I just absolutely love so much. Sorry, I just wanted to zoom in on this one because I absolutely love this artwork in particular. Let's look at the character. So she's the incarnation of disease. The incarnation of disease, known as the Red Death, always reminds one that disease, death, and decay does not discriminate and slowly stalks everyone for all their days. What's her ability? And if there are exactly 3 damage tokens among your cards, you may damage any card. So potentially a way for you to have free damage, repeatable free damage on your opponent, but it's not free because you have to have exactly 3 damage tokens among your cards. So that means this card pairs very well with any healing or damage shifting effect. Well, damage shifting not as much, but it can. Damage shifting definitely helps, but healing or cards that actually self damage are kind of good with this, because with those 2 types of cards you can basically try to set yourself to have those exactly 3 damage tokens, so that you can do this extra damage. And so this card is unique in that you want your cards to be damaged but managed so that you can do free damage. And definitely not a card for a beginner. This is a little bit hard card to get the effect of, but when you're able to, it can be quite devastating. So again, you want a mix, either of those 2 things, healing effects or self-damaging effects, should go well here to make sure you have the 3 damage tokens. Damage shifting works, but more from the sense that you want your cards damaged, but you want to live. So damage shifting will let you kind of keep your cards alive, but it doesn't really keep you at that exact number that you want to be at. And how does that work tie into her thematically? Just basically you generally want your damage spread out, and it's kind of like a disease tends to spread. So that's how I tie that together thematically. So that is the Mask of the Red Death. And then we have the Wizard of Oz, of course, one of famous fairy tales, I think, or at least one of my favorites. We have the Wizard of Oz, the Land of Oz. And here the Wizard of Oz is a technomancer lich, a scientist trapped in Oz for centuries. He prolonged his life through magic and technology to one day escape. The Emerald City is secretly a power reactor that fuels his magic. So in this world, spoiler, I'm gonna say, so this Oz that we've envisioned is kind of a diesel punk setting that has magic. And in this particular case, the wizard isn't a charlatan. He does actually have magic. He knows magic, and he is a scientist, and he knows technology. And so, but in our story, he's been trapped, like it says, in Oz for centuries, but figured out a way to keep himself alive. And despite all that, and we tried to show this in the artwork, he's not a bad guy, despite his scary look. He is a good wizard and runs Oz, but he does want to kind of get out of there. And now that the multiverse is fracturing and he's gained some more access to other realms, he aims to do that, but he also doesn't want to see it all come to ruin. So he's more one of the good guys. He would rather fix things rather than have things devolve into chaos. And so he would actually team up with like Santa Claus to help that. Isn't that a strange sentence? All right, what's his ability? Reaction: when you reset a card, you may damage shift your card. So this is quite useful, especially within the Shattered Fantasy set, because the Shattered Fantasy set is the one that introduces the ambush mechanic, which ambush cards get reset to the bottom of your deck. And also, mind you, once per turn, you always get a reset action on your turn. So at least once a turn, you're gonna be able to damage shift your own cards. It doesn't let you do it to your opponent's cards, but it'll be a way for you to move your damage around and keep your cards alive for as long as possible. And how does that fit in thematically? Well, it's just like he tinkers with magic and science and tries to develop a balance of the two. That's his ability there, and it's also his outlook. He would rather have a balanced multiverse rather than this fractured chaos that's going on. And that is the Wizard of Oz, and I think that's the last of the entities. So we're gonna go into the character cards, and I'm really thirsty today. We got Alice Liddell. Alice is a vampire hunter who braves the perils of Wonderland to slay the vampire Queen of Hearts. So I've imagined Wonderland pretty much how you expect it from the original stories. However, Alice is a bit different. And in Wonderland, the Queen of Hearts is a vampire Queen of Hearts, and she rules it as a vampire would, or you can imagine a vampire, feeding off of, the people of it. And Alice has arrived to basically kill her and behead her. And one thing that is interesting that she's wielding an axe here, and in lore that I looked up, one of the old, besides staking a vampire in the heart, one of the methods of ensuring that a vampire doesn't come back is beheading it, and I think specifically beheading it with an axe. And so that's why she has these these are actually like throwing axes that she has, and that's her main weapon, but she has stakes. And just to hammer home that she is in Wonderland, one of my favorite little details is she has a little drink me bottle there. We won't tell you what that actually does, but she has other potions and whatever. She's good in melee, and that's important because her ability is combat. This card may make a melee attack against any position. So during combat, instead of doing her normal attack roll, she can activate this ability, which is also an attack, but she can do it against any position, which means that most of the time, at least on your turn, you can attack something with your best stat, which is your melee, which means that if your opponent is trying to keep cards away from her, she can hunt them down. And that's how it ties in thematically. She is a vampire hunter, and you can use this card to hunt down specific cards that your opponent may have on the board, kind of regardless of where their position is. And I think that's all I can say about that. That is Alice Liddell. Oh, and the name Liddell, I think, comes from the original written story. I think they had that as their name. At least that's what my research came up with, and that's what we went with. So, next character. Beowulf. Hey, we talked about Grendel's mother earlier. Well, he is Beowulf, and like I said, he is in a sort of Fallout Mad Max post-apocalypse with guns and cars. And let's read his flavor text. In a post-apocalyptic future, a hero emerges to protect the people of a lawless wasteland. So, like the Beowulf of legend, he is a good guy, he's a hero, he's helping the people, and his ability is reaction. This card gains +1 to its die rolls if it performed a switch this turn. Thematically, that's supposed to represent that he's driving around in a car, and when you drive around in a car, you move around. Well, a switch is moving your cards around in play, so as long as he stays on the move, he gets a bonus to his attack rolls. It's pretty easy to kind of keep this up all the time, which almost makes this card a 4/4 in his stats rather than a 3. However, that's basically only on your turn, so so he's a bit weaker on your opponent's turn. And as far as for strategy, switch them often if you can. Beware of where you're switching your other cards to, though, because you might put them in a dangerous situation. But anything that lets you switch is good with Beowulf. That's really the strategy with him. Just keep him on the move, and you'll have a powerful card. Next, we have the Big Bad Wolf, which is featured in many fairy tales, but this one specifically, the Big Bad Wolf from the Red Riding Hood fairy tale. A vicious alpha werewolf that hunts the dark woods on the outskirts of a busy city. And that ties into the outfit that we put on him. Instead of just being just a fur guy with fur, we put clothes on him, and I wanted to kind of look somewhat modern. So he's got jeans and a t-shirt and like a hoodie jacket kind of thing. And we wanted to make him look just sort of like a little bit modern. And I also, if you look at the color scheme, I wanted him to appear like a husky or a Malamute. So he's got sort of the white and black look to him with the blue eyes. appearance wise, some of my favorite dogs are huskies, although I'm not sure I would really want to have one. I hear they're crazy, but that's what we modeled the big bad wolf out of, instead of a wolf. Those huskies. All right, what's his ability? Ongoing. This card gains +1 to all its rolls if it has any damage tokens on it. Well, that's to represent that it basically gets enraged, and we actually show that in the artwork here. So in the artwork, you see he's got little arrows sticking out of him, because I always knew that this ability, that's what, when we were doing the artwork for the card, this ability was going to be tied into it. Not all the cards had their abilities assigned at the time that we did the artwork, but we knew we wanted the character, and we just needed to figure out what the, in a lot of cases we needed to figure out what the mechanic was going to be for them. Big Bad Wolf, I always knew that this is what his ability was going to be. As far as strategy with this guy, not much to it. Just you want to have some damage mitigation around, so you can have some good uptime on this and keep him alive, so you can gain the benefits of that +1 for as long as possible. Next, we have one of our first ambush card. This is Bigfoot. So here we go. We're taking this is not necessarily a fairy tale, it's more of a urban legend, I would say, right? Cryptozoology. Although large and burly, this forest guardian and his kin are masters of surprise ambushes. So what does he do? Well, he's got an ambush effect, and use this card after the dice are rolled for combat. All your cards gain +1 to their die rolls for this turn. So this is one of those cards that I was scared of putting into the game for a long time. A card that kind of can be like an instant and affect damage combat, but especially after dice are rolled. I generally like to have things decided before the dice are rolled. This is one of the few that you can do it after the die rolls, and used at the right time can be quite powerful, especially because it buffs all your guys. And how does that fit? Well, first of all, let's back up a little bit. What is up with this artwork? I didn't want Bigfoot to look just like a happy-go-lucky Harry and the Hendersons. We didn't also want it to make it just look like a gorilla. We wanted to do something that was beast-like but was a little bit different. I can't remember what I saw, but I remember seeing somewhere I saw like some beastmen with antlers. Yeah, I think I saw beastmen with antlers somewhere, and that made me think of, oh, antlers, and I thought of what are the most impressive antlers to me, and those are of moose. So we basically gave him big giant moose antlers here, and I didn't want it to be just a brute. So it is part of a tribe, so it has these tribal markings. It is not a dumb creature. It is an intelligent being with clans, or with its own society, and to show that it does use intelligence to its favor, in its favor, making shields and stuff like that, low tech stuff. So it's just not just a dumb brute, and despite its size, like it says, they're good at ambushing your opponent. So yeah, so essentially that's what this guy does. Now, as an ambush card, you do need to keep this card in your hand, so it's hidden in your hand, which is what Bigfoot does. Bigfoot tends to stay hidden. Most people haven't seen one, so then it comes out as a surprise, scares you, and then runs off. So that's how it ties in thematically, and that is the Bigfoot card. Bloody Mary. So again, we are back to urban legends. This was different because I guess you could say this is more, Bigfoot is more cryptozoology. Bloody Mary is definitely an urban legend. A malevolent spirit said to appear in a mirror when her name is chanted repeatedly in a dark room. I think many of us have heard this scary story. I know it's always freaked out me. I will tell you right now, I 100% I still believe it. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I believe it. I'm scared of. I actually am still bothered by being in a dark room with a mirror in it. It definitely bothers me, and I will absolutely not call out her name multiple times. Again, Nevea did just an incredible job with this artwork here. Just your twin in your mirrors coming out to get you. What's your ability? Play. Select a card and play. You may switch its melee and flank values until the end of the turn. You make a card turn into a mirror image of itself, is essentially what that's doing there. And that's all I gotta say about that. This is it's kind of a surprise card. You play it, and because most of the time your opponent's not gonna know you're gonna have it in your hand, and you can use this to really just set up a pivotal combat turn, to put a card. I wanted to avoid in the game effects that moved the opponent's cards around, because I felt like that added a lot of complexity and questions and a lot of weird stuff. So then, rather than moving cards around, I had the idea of, what if I just switch the stats around? And that's what Bloody Mary does. Very simple strategy. Just use this to target a card that you want to put in a state, or use a stat so that you can get some favorable combat against it and kill it or severely damage it that turn. So Bloody Mary is all about just having one real great combat turn. All right, Captain Hook. Yes, we have the Neverland world, Peter Pan's Neverland, and we're going in alphabetical order. That's how these are. So, Captain Hook, the most feared sky pirate in Neverland. She is the scourge of the skyways. So here we have Captain Hook. Well, first of all, in Neverland, it's set in a steampunk genre. So they have flying steam airships and steampunk weapons and all that, and a steampunk motif. And I want to definitely zoom. I mean, I'm zooming on a lot of them, but I definitely want to zoom in on this one, because on the card, so much detail is lost, and Nevea just did so much with this character that's just so cool. From the gun, she's got a steampunk, wicked looking hook hand there that's got gears and all that. So yeah, just absolutely fantastic. So what's her ability? Tactical. Draw a card or reset a card from your hand. So this will just let you sculpt your hand, and it's all about tactics, being smart. And in here, I vision Captain Hook as not just being a brutish character that's just trying to kill Peter, but a more brilliant tactician that is being methodical at hunting down their quarry. That's not much else to say about Captain Hook there. But again, a tactical card, good at most of the time. I think people will use the reset ability more than the draw card, just because you want to cycle through your deck, which works good with cards that have reset abilities, and or ambush cards in particular is what Captain Hook is good with. So if you take Captain Hook, she's good with ambush cards. The Cheshire Cat, speaking of ambush cards, a lunatic bounty hunter of Wonderland that stalks the mushroom forest looking for prey to catch. So this was a hard one. This one took me a long time to figure out how I was going to redesign the look of this character, because the Cheshire Cat is so well known in Alice in Wonderland. So I was inspired by the Predator from the Predator movies. And in fact, we made him look like the Predator, where he's cloaking and he's turning invisible. There, he even has the Predator gun and the netting of the Predator. I mean, it was very much inspired by the Predator. So what's his ability? Ambush. Negate a card being played and reset it, or put it back into its owner's hand. If their deck is empty, that player can still play a different card. So this completely stop somebody from playing a card or a specific card. They'll get to play a card afterwards, but it'll negate a very specific card, and that is quite useful. Now, it's important to remember that ambush cards, when they use their effect, they also get reset. So if you time it right, you can set things up so that when you use this to ambush a card and negate it being played, that card goes to the bottom of their deck. Your card, your Cheshire Cat, also goes to the bottom of your deck. You could time it so that they will get drawn to the hand about the same time. And if you could do that, you could potentially counter the same card again. And I've seen that happen. I've seen players actually do that, and it's hilarious. It's fantastic, and it fits well thematically with the card, because that's what the card is doing. He's a bounty hunter going after specific targets, and that's how it works in the game. And that's the Cheshire Cat. And of course, we couldn't not do the well-known smile there, right? All right, next card, Cinderella. After much abuse by her evil stepfamily, her inner rage blossomed into a raging pyrokinetic inferno. So this one's a bit of a stretch, I'm gonna admit. I went literal. Cinderella, Cinder. So if you just take the first part, Cinder, because that is from the original story. I believe that's how she was named, because she used to sleep in the either in the fireplace or at the hearth of the fireplace, and they called her Cinderella because she was full of cinders and ash, and that name was derogatory for her. So for the picture, I was inspired by an old favorite movie of mine, the Stephen King movie Firestarter with Drew Barrymore. I actually went and saw that in the theater. And whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave that up to you. But I saw that movie in the theater, and I found it very cool to have sort of a young girl have these really powerful psychic powers. And so I sort of blended that with the Cinderella story, that she's been abused by her stepfamily and she blossoms into a rage to go after them. And something that Nevea did, I think, really great, that is lost when you see the card small, is just this expression on her face. Even though it mentions she's in a rage, I wanted for there to be sort of a hint of sadness to the character's look. And I think Nevea really did that here. And she captured the sort of the soot covered face of Cinderella from like the stories. So what's her ability? Death. Sacrifice the card that killed this card, then damage one of your cards. So yeah, how it ties in thematically, just she blows up essentially. Sacrifice the card that killed this card and then damage one of your cards. So that's a drawback. She basically dies and kills something. So similar to a card we've seen in Vanishing Point, Zen, but Zen was a 3 cost or 3 value card. She's a 2 value card, so she has a slight extra drawback in that she damages one of your own cards because she's explodes. So one of your cards gets caught in the explosion as well. And really that's all it is. Just she's just so much full of rage that when you defeat her, that raging fireball of energy comes out. And that's Cinderella. The Cowardly Lion. We are back to Wonderland. A failed experimental soldier by the Wicked Witch. He refused to obey evil orders and was exiled. So I don't even know how I landed on this, but I basically wanted to make it as more like he was part of an experiment where the Wicked Witch, who's controls Wonderland now, except for the city of Oz. The city of Oz, not the city of Oz, the Emerald City of Oz. It's the only thing she doesn't control. She controls everything else. One of the things she wanted to do in her war was to create sort of these super soldiers and would mix them with animals. And that's why we see like he's got like this stitching here. He's like a crafted, created being, a mixture of human and lion. But as you can tell by his expression, he's not he's a good guy. He's a gentle giant, and they call him cowardly, but he really isn't. He just doesn't wanna attack. And that ties to his ability, Ambush. Negate an attack. That card cannot attack this turn. Trigger this effect when an attack is announced and before dice are rolled. So you kind of got to be quick on the draw with this. Players tend to like roll their dice or draw their dice cards quick as soon as they announce attack. If you have this card, you got to be quick and just say, hey, hold on a second, and then you negate it. Because this is an unusual ability that doesn't come up very often. So In fact, it's one of the only cards I think that does that. So anyway, very simple. Not much strategy. Just protect one of your valuable cards. Again, this works good with something like the Wizard of Oz or any cards that let you cycle through your deck. This is a great way to keep your opponent from getting good attacks against you. And yeah, pair this with any kind of resetting of your deck, and you're gonna be very happy. So that's the Cowardly Lion. And still in Oz, we have Dorothy Gale. Crashed in Oz by a fierce storm, this combat pilot soon became a freedom fighter for Munchkinland. So, keeping with the diesel punk theme, here we have Dorothy, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. She's a World War II fighter pilot, and it's her plane that gets lost in Oz, not her house, and it crashes, and you can see it crashes into the evil queen there. And unfortunately, she does not have a dog total, but her plane is total. All right, and yeah, we wanted her to not just be a helpless little girl in the land of Oz, but a combat pilot worthy of just fighting for herself. And in the story, after landing in Wonderland and finds out about the Wicked Witch of the West controlling everything, she decides to help them combat this over a way to get home. Although she figures, if she helps them anyway, they'll help her and get back home. Again, I don't know there's a whole lot more to say there as far as theme. Let's go to the ability Kill. If it is your turn, this card may attack again. So I wanted this card to feel like it's speedy, it moves around, and it's got the twin guns. The twin guns was the big thing that can shoot two things. So basically that's what its ability is that when it kills something, and it's on your turn, that's the limiting factor, it has to be on your turn, it can do another attack. So basically that's its second gun, it can shoot something and then shoot again. And what's interesting is that she is a flank type card. So that's why this is a level 3, because not only do you get an extra attack, you're getting an attack from being in the flank position, which is a little bit safer. So this can be a very dangerous card to be facing. As far as strategy, yeah, any kind of damage shifting that you can do on the opponent, or having cards that will do extra damage, will be really good, because what you want to do is have cards be down to 1 health and then kill him with Dorothy, so then she can gain the extra attack. Do that and you're gonna be unloading on the opponent, and hopefully win. I got lost in my thought there, but that's Dorothy Gale. We got Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde. Seeking his inner wild side, the good Dr. Jekyll made a formula that brings out the naughty Miss Hyde. So, this character, I wanted to do Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but we gender bent it and made Miss Hyde. And it was interesting because I gave a strange directive to the artist. I did want it to be a male-female counterpart thing. And no, I wasn't trying to make any kind of political statement and or trans statement or anything like that. I'm not knowledgeable in that area, so I don't delve there. But I do love the dichotomy between men and women and genders. Excuse me. My throat is dry in this video. I apologize. But anyway, I just thought it would be interesting to have a character that swaps from one to the other. And we wanted to do that in the artwork. Now, if you look at the artwork is actually more about Dr. Jekyll himself. He's not really the focus as far as the artwork, because they're both centered. But if you notice, his potion here that turns him into Miss Hyde is turning into her world here and showing her edge, showing that all of this is encompassed within his bottle there. And we wanted to do we also wanted to use colors to signify that, and Nevaeh is so great at colors. So his is a more reddish look, and where hers is a more cold blue. And they are, just for lack of where to put it, we put it in a sort of cyberpunk setting. And just, I think for some reason I wanted her to have a gun. I thought that would be interesting way of showing her that she's, sort of the bad one. And the strange directive, I think I got lost in thought. The strange directive that I wanted to give to the artist was, I wanted them to look almost like they're in an abusive relationship, right? Like he's being controlled and manipulated by her, even though he created her, so to speak, but not really, because right, the Miss Hyde is the inner part of him that the potion's bringing out. But essentially, I just wanted to show it as a not abusive, but it's just definitely not a happy union. And I think Nevaeh did really great here. I get a lot of comments about this piece of artwork in particular. I think people like it a lot, and I love it as well. And let's go into the ability here. So just like Dr. Jekyll and Miss Hyde are essentially two characters, this card has two effects. One has a play ability. You may heal any card. That's the Dr. Jekyll Mr. Half, right? He's a doctor. And the other one is death. You may damage any card. That's the Miss Hyde part. She's destructive and evil, and so she may damage any card, and that's how that ties into the character there. One part of it heals, the other part damages. And that's, I think, all I gotta say about that. We'll go on to the next, Frankenstein's monster. So this ties into a card we saw earlier. Let's read the flavor text. Discovering that Dracula exists, Frankenstein Inc. created a killing machine to take on the vampire. So in this sort of cyberpunk world, we already saw Dracula before. She's like a powerful CEO, and in this world, corporations are like, especially her corporation, control a lot of things. There's another corporation called Frankenstein Inc. That wants to, they don't want her to be in charge, especially because she's a vampire. They're okay with corporations being in charge because they're a corporation themselves and control a lot, but they don't want one being headed up by a vampire. So they created a killing machine to take on the vampire and try to kill that particular person, not so much destroy their company. Now, what's its ability? Reaction: when any card is healed, you may heal this card. For inspiration, if it's not apparent, I wanted to do something like the Terminator in the Terminator movies, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, the Terminator. So it's basically a cybernetic being that is created to go after the vampire. Now, being cybernetic means that it's much harder for it to be turn into an undead vampire, for one. And the second thing, and this ties into its ability reaction: when any card is healed, you may heal this card. It's supposed to represent not that she regenerates, but that she's just tough to kill, right? When you think you've defeated her, she still keeps going, which ties into, or this is a counter to Dracula's ability. Remember, Dracula's ability, I said, is essentially like they're winning ties, but not quite, because it's technically a healing effect. And so this card directly benefits from that happening. So if you're playing the game and you have Dracula, you would want Dracula's monster because it works very well with your own ability. If your opponent has Dracula, you don't want them to have Frankenstein's monster. You want to take it because then you will benefit from their ability. And that's kind of the base level strategy there. Other than that, you definitely want to have any kind of healing cards in your deck will pair well, because when you heal other stuff, she will heal as well. And that's Frankenstein's monster. This is one of the cards that never fails to make me laugh on so many levels. We have Goldilocks, a zany thrill junkie that loves dangerous heights and daring robberies just for the sheer excitement. So, in the original story, Goldilocks went into the home of the three bears and ate their food and slept in their beds, and I forgot whatever else. I don't know. Took a dump in their toilet. Um, I take that as she's an intruder. She broke in, so we made our Goldilocks is a roguish thief that breaks into places. We also wanted to channel a little Harley Quinn and have her have a just a sort of a unhinged look, and that's why we put that in the flavor text. She's zany. Um, Now her ability is death. Ban this card. So ban is I think was introduced also here in this set, and is used a little bit more in the Fallen Order set. But so ban means that this card is removed from the game completely, which means that when this card dies and you remove it from the game, the opponent will not get the benefit of this one Animus level that's on it. So you could almost read this as it just being a 0. Your opponent doesn't get any real benefit out of killing this card, and yet you can have it on the board, attacking them, wrecking havoc. And being a 3/3, she works in just about any situation. So there's no real strategy here other than that this card will just won't count against you in a game. And how does this tie in thematically? Well, it's just representing that she's stealing, and that's what the artwork is here, is that she's jumping out of this place stealing, which what this represents is she gets banned, right? She's leaving the game, so she's escaping, she's leaving the place, she's leaving the game, and she's stealing this, which is the 1 point that she's taken away. The 1 point that the opponent would have gained, she's running off with it. And the reason it's red, and I'm not even sure why I made it. I know why I made it red. It has to do with her typing. So she's a blue type, and she's good against red. So she's running off with a red gem. I don't know why I made it that. And this, I don't remember the rationale there, but I do remember that that's sort of supposed to tie into her color typing. So this is one of the cards that had the most cohesiveness between or at least most thought between its effect, its artwork, and its stats, which not a lot of cards were designed to that degree. But I just find this card to just be a fun card and can fit in any deck. There's just no not really right or wrong with this card. Usually you won't be disappointed to have this in your deck. Moving on. Grendel. Okay, we're visiting back the Beowulf storyline. So we have Grendel here. In the lawless wasteland, this mutant fiend wreaks havoc, pillaging and killing for pleasure. So as we saw earlier, Grendel's mother is trying to create spawns that are powerful to create, to control, to take over the not just the wasteland but the multiverse. Well, Grendel's one of her more successful ones. And his ability is reaction. When one of your cards is killed, you may heal this card. Basically, he eats corpses, or he feeds on things that he kills. And very much for this setting, like I said, I was inspired by the Fallout games and Mad Max. And in the Fallout games, they have this creature called the Death Claw, which is a feared mutant in the wasteland. And I wanted to do something like that, but of course not copy that thing. In Fallout, it's like a lizard being creature. Here I wanted to do something, and this was very cool because the only instruction I gave to Neville was it should be some kind of a mix between a reptile and an insect. And she came up with the idea of making an antlion type of thing. And so that's why we got this cool look to it. And yeah, so strategy wise, well, he heals himself when he kills stuff. So just like any other, kind of like Dorothy, you want effects that can do damage shifting on the opponent or deal damage to the opponent. So you want to put your opponent's cards on death door, and then have sorry, I'm reading this one more. When one of your cards is killed, you may heal this card. So damage shifting and self damage can potentially be good. I was confusing with this with another card. Basically, he gets a benefit from your other cards dying, but whether that's good or bad is going to be situational to your game, because you may have a game where having a red type isn't that important, so then you don't want to really care about setting this up. But if in a particular case your red card in play, being in play is important, then you want to make use of this effect. So this card is actually very situational. You want to pair it with damage shifting is usually pretty good with this. All right, the Headless Rider. This was a tough one when working on the look for it. A malevolent wraith that appears throughout history to exact unjust vengeance on lone travelers. Reaction: when you perform a switch with this card, you may select 2 cards controlled by one opponent and switch them per switch rules. So, well, in the story is the Headless Rider, or the Headless Horseman was originally called. That's what it's based off of. Well, we didn't want to do that, just a regular horse and horseman. And I thought about doing a motorcycle and a flaming guy, but that would look too much like Ghost Rider. And even now, it still kind of looks a bit much like Ghost Rider, except Ghost Rider does not remove his head and throw it at people. And that is definitely an homage to an animated movie where the Headless Horseman throws a flaming pumpkin at a character. I forgot the name. That's what we did here. And its ability, how it ties in thematically, is that it's a motorcycle that's driving around and chasing down the opponent. That's how movement is represented in the game, switching cards around. And when you switch, you're gonna force your opponent to switch and set yourself up for good turns. So that's what this card is really trying to do, just set yourself up for advantageous combat positions. And really, that's all there is about that. Herbert West, another Lovecraftian character. If you don't know Herbert West, and I'm surprised to find out a lot of people don't. This comes from the Reanimator. No, is that the name of it? Yeah, I think so. The Reanimator story by Lovecraft. I think that was the name of it. There might have been another title to it, but anyway, and there's a famous Reanimator movie, which I actually love very much. But this is the Herbert West, who is a scientist. Well, let's read an unscrupulous doctor obsessed with perfecting his special serum that reanimates the dead, and that is originally from the original story. In here, we just put him in just a futuristic cyberpunk setting, but he does the same thing. He's basically resurrecting things from the dead, and he's a little bit of a wild, kooky character. His ability is play. Put a card from any discard into play on your battlefield with 2 damage tokens. It enters play as if it were just played and moves to your discard if killed. So, as we seen like with an old card that we saw before, Lilith, getting cards from your discard pile is exceedingly powerful. And that's no different here. You can get back a level 3 from your discard pile, making it harder to lose the game. However, the card does come back with damage on it, so it should be easily killed. But a very, very powerful ability. Definitely, I don't know if this is, you would say this is a must pick, but this is usually a very high pick for me. You definitely want to consider this guy, because getting a card back is quite good. The ability to potentially use a play effect again is quite powerful. And if you have any kind of healing or damage shifting abilities on your side of the field, Herbert West will be very good, because then you'll be able to heal the card that came back. And yeah, now mind you, you could resurrect something from the opponent's discard, but just remember that you're taking points away from them, or from yourself really, and when it dies, it's going to go into your discard, so that could be bad. Most of the time people tend to use this on their own card, so you want healing cards and damage shifting cards with this to keep alive the card that you just resurrected. And that's Herbert West. We've got the Jabberwock. We're going back into Wonderland, and whether this is good or bad, I don't want to know, But in Wonderland, there's a lot of poems. In fact, wasn't the whole story a poem? I don't remember. So I tried to make some kind of poem for the Jabberwock's flavor text that was similar to the original story. So here we got the Jabberwock. Slain lay dead the manxome foe, but dark magic and machinations churn. Wallow in furious row, the Jabberwock returns. So in the original story, the Jabberwock is slain, right? That's what the whole story of the Jabberwock is about killing it. Well, here we've brought it back, and we've brought it back as a cybernetic kaiju. As we can see, it's bigger than buildings, and it's got cybernetics and stuff like that. And it's just a very weird, creepy looking beast. And what's its ability? Ongoing. This card always rolls 2 dice in combat as if it had advantage. It never rolls more than 2 dice. This is very much a premium pick. He is a 5-1, 5 melee, 1 flanker, so you absolutely want this guy in melee position. His only drawback is that the 2 flankers opposing him generally will have an easier time because he's only a 1, but he still rolls 2 dice in combat. So he can be tough to take down even in situations where your opponent has advantage, because he also will have advantage. Basically always has advantage. So this guy's a tough cookie to take down. Hard to beat his rolls. You want to, when fighting, well, if you're playing with him, you want to keep him alive, so any kind of healing or damage shifting will work. And the opponent, on the other hand, wants to, or when you're playing against this, you want to flank this guy. Do not let this guy stay on the board. Put some flankers that are good against him. Attack him from the flank. If you have any kind of damage shifting or damage that you can do to your opponent, put it on him, because you want this card dead. And it's worth it because he's worth 3 big points. So that is the Jabberwock. Almost always a must pick. I mean, almost even if you don't want the type, you probably want him just because he's just very good in most situations. And could we do anything less for the beloved Jabberwock? Lady Greystoke. Raised in the wild after her parents' death, she rose up as queen of the jungle and protector of the weak. So this was interesting coming up with this card because I wanted to do the Tarzan character, but I had a hard time trying to figure out how to envision that character that wasn't just another copy of things we've seen before. And it didn't really feel appropriate to put him in any other genre other than his original, sort of being in the jungle. So a friend of mine was the one that came up with the idea. He was like, hey, do Lady Greystoke. That is actually a character in comics or something like that. There's a story somewhere of this character. I don't remember. Apologize. So that's where this character came from, Lady Greystoke. And this weapon here, the name escapes me. I should have looked it up before doing this video, but I looked this up. This is some kind of tribal warfare weapon that was created, and so that's where we got that. And just the look of her was, we wanted to not just do sexy jungle lady, but we wanted to do something that was, represented that she was in in this kind of climate, but also a warrior and not just showing skin. So what's its ability? Reaction: when this card receives damage, you may heal any other card. And that goes into the idea of, like, I envisioned her as she's a protector of the forest and its denizens. So that's what her ability does, is that she sacrifices her health to heal the other cards or protect the other cards. And really, that's as simple as it gets. Little Mermaid. The smallest of the undersea hunters, she nevertheless is the most tenacious among them. So we wanted to just, what I wanted to do was Little Mermaid, but I didn't want to do the usual, thing where it looks like a half human, half fish thing. I wanted it to look like it is its own being, that this is how it naturally is. It's not a half and half of anything. This is how they are. And I think Nevaeh nailed it with the look of this character, and just the use of greens with the kelp and just a wonderful effect. And its ability is play, select an opponent's card and play. It has -2 to its combat rolls until the end of the turn. So we envisioned her. I didn't want to envision her as a weak character. She's a hunter, and she sort of swoops in out of the depths of the sea to stab something with her cool spear here, and that's what her effect is. Select an opponent's card and play. It has -2 to combat roll. So for one turn, a card will have bad stats. It's like they got stabbed and pinned down by her effect. And really, that's what her usage is. Kind of like Bloody Mary. She's more about ensuring that you have this one good turn against one specific card and try to take it out and kill it. And that's the Little Mermaid, and we're gonna see something similar like that very soon. Going back to cryptids, we got the Loch Ness Monster. Scientists regarded the Loch Ness Monster as nothing but a hoax up until it devoured them. So we how did we reinvent it? Well, we made it based off of a dinosaur, because that's the rumor, or that's the theory, that the real Loch Ness, if there is one, is some kind of dinosaur that has survived to this day. So again, I should have looked it up. I forgot. This is based off of a real dinosaur. There's an aquatic dinosaur that has sort of a crocodilian look to it and is very massive. Ours here is extremely massive. It's colossal because this is a whale that it is eating. So to show the scale of it, it is just this tremendous beast that's probably too big to fit in a lock, but we still called it the Loch Ness Monster anyway. And what's its ability? Ambush. When one or more of your cards takes damage the source of that damage. So it's sort of a way to take revenge on your on an opponent for damaging your card. It's supposed to represent that it's coming up as a surprise, because it's an ambush out of the depths, but it doesn't do it until one of your cards take damage. So it's sort of like it smells the blood, like a shark does. It smells the blood and comes up from the depths to attack your thing. And really, that's the use case of it. You want to pair this with any cards that let you reset your deck and move through your deck, so you can do this more often, because your cards will be taking damage, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for the Loch Ness Monster to take a bite. Speaking of aquatic beasts, we have Moby Dick. Many have tried to capture or kill this legendary ravenous leviathan. None have ever survived. So, well, first thing you're going to notice is it's not a whale, as Moby Dick is a white whale in the original stories. We wanted to make him look like a great white shark, but to me, a great white shark wasn't interesting enough. We made him a megalodon, as we can tell by this ship, this full ship he's eating. He's just chiming. And if the scale wasn't enough, that's a lighthouse that he's towering over, and the anchor of this ship is just around his neck like a chain. So a truly colossal being. The waves are being splashed up way up into the sky, up to the clouds, and just a giant beast. We also wanted it to have all kinds of battle scars to show just how it's been alive for so long and lived through so much. It's an ancient megalodon. And what's its ability? Reaction: when any card, when this card rolls a 1 on any die, you may re-roll it. So essentially, it's very similar to the Jabberwock. It's almost always gonna have a good combat roll. And by the way, that means that when it rolls advantage, when you have advantage and you roll 2 dice, if any one of those is a 1, you're gonna re-roll it before making the decision, if that wasn't apparent. So that's what makes this card very powerful, is that very much like the Jabberwock, it very rarely has a bad combat roll. It really only has a bad combat roll in flanking, or if it rolls like maybe a 2, because 1s will always get re-rolled. And that is Moby Dick. No strategy other than put them up front and wreak havoc. There's literally, I think, only one card in the game that lets you manipulate die rolls. So there's not a whole lot of strategy planning around that. So put them up front and kill things. Hua Mulan, a freedom fighter who works to sabotage the tyrannical rule of an oppressive government corporation. So this ties into the cyberpunk setting of where like Dracula and Frankenstein Inc. is, where she comes from a cyberpunk setting where corporations rule and there are they are also the government, and she's just a freedom fighter that is attempting to overthrow them. And we took inspiration, instead of being feudal Japan, we put her, or is it China? I don't remember what Mulan was, but we made her in a cyberpunk setting, and we wanted to pay a homage to the Ghost in the Shell anime. And so that's what some of this look is. And I'd have to ask Neve again, but she did look up what these kanji are, if that's the right term, and they do mean something. I told her I wanted her to be very careful that it didn't say anything dirty, and she assured me that is not. But I don't, at the moment, I don't particularly remember what it was, but that's all it was. I wanted to do the Mulan character and just have her as a cool sort of cyberpunk ninja. What's her effect? Negate a play effect. The negated card remains in its owner's hand and cannot be used this turn, but a different card may be played. Well, that ties into the fact that she's a freedom fighter. She's thwarting the will of the government corporations, which translates to thwarting a play effect that an opponent wants to do. It is a very specific effect. It's negating only play effects. So it's not negating a card play, but it's negating a card that has a play effect. So that's why it's only a 1, because it's a very, very specific thing that it's countering. Not a whole lot of strategy there. Just when you're drafting, if you happen to notice that your opponent is drafting a lot of play cards, Mulan would be great. Like many ambush cards, she pairs best with cards that reset through your deck often, so you can use her effect often, although her effect doesn't come up all that often. Most of the time you're picking her for her stats, and that's Mulan. We got Peter Pan here, a mischievous young jetpack pilot. He's always foiling the dastardly plans of the vile Sky Pirates. So the Sky Pirates are Captain Hook and the Sky Pirates. So we've got Peter Pan Neverland, like I mentioned before, is in a steampunk Sky Pirates genre, and we got Peter Pan here as a cyberpunk jetpack pilot. One cool thing that we did here is thinking about Peter Pan and thinking about movies and stuff. Something that always stuck in my mind was the movie theater poster to the Broadway show of Peter Pan, where Sandy Duncan played Peter Pan, and she was in this pose that you see here, and we wanted to pay homage to that character because that was kind of a iconic poster, and just has always stood out to me, so I wanted to pay homage to that. So that's where this pose came from. And also I think it really just shows off that it's kind of a carefree character. And a little detail is that while he is blowing up the ships and wreaking havoc and flying around shooting, he's actually listening to music. That's what this is. He's listening to music on his steampunk Walkman. And yeah, that's Peter Pan. What's the effect? Negative play, reset, or ambush effect. The negated card remains in its owner's hand and cannot be used this turn, but a different card may be played. Well, that's what Peter Pan is in the game. It's all about disrupting the Sky Pirate, where he's going to disrupt your opponent's cards, similar to Mulan. However, this is a level 3 card, so it negates 3 different things: a play effect, a reset effect, or ambush effect. Mind you, it does not prevent your opponent from resetting a card. It prevents the reset effect. So they can reset a card, but if it gets a reset effect, it'll block the reset effect. Actually, it does negate the reset, actually, because it does say that the negated card remains in its own hand. So yeah, that's Peter Pan. What do you use it with? Like any ambush card, anything that resets your deck is good with this. Pinocchio, another ambush card. A sentient battle android wanders a war-torn landscape searching for what it means to be human. So we wanted to play with the idea of the wooden little boy who wants to be real. Well, we have a little android who dreams to be real, wants to be human. And his ability is ambush, negate one damage being dealt to a card except from play and death effects. So he basically protects your card. We specified that it can't be from play and death effects because those two cards with those two effects, most of the time that is the one thing that makes that card special. And I didn't want this card to outright negate something like that. It definitely has that very feels bad moment, so we didn't want to do that. So it specifies negating damage. Most of the time it just amounts to negating combat damage, although there's other instances that you can block. Yeah, that's Pinocchio. And going back to the art, I was inspired by the Nier Automata video games, which I love very much, which with the white hair, and it has to do with battle androids that wonder what it means to be human. And a little cool detail that we did here, and I think I was inspired by iRobot. I think it's iRobot, where his body is sort of translucent and you can see inside him. Oh no, actually it wasn't iRobot. It was by the movie Ex Machina, which I absolutely love. And in that movie there was an android and you could see sort of the inner workings, and so we wanted to do that here. And again it's just another way to show off that he's an android in the artwork. So that is Pinocchio. Pocahontas, a no-nonsense criminal bounty hunter chasing down those who shirk the law. This was a card that I was almost afraid to do. A lot of people, when I was consulting people about this card, about this character, kept saying, you don't want to mess around with Native American stuff. And I was like, but why? It is a culture. I'm not trying to make a positive or negative statement on it. I want to represent the character. The character was a Native American, and I had talks with the artist Nevaeh, and I think she did something very tasteful. Again, we wanted to have as many of the women characters in my game. I wanted them to feel empowering, and here we have a no-nonsense bounty hunter. I, in my opinion, Nevaeh tastefully incorporated Native American traits to her with these pigtails and sort of the design of her outfit. Again, it's not about cultural appropriation. It's about representing this character in their culture, and rather it being a sort of helpless character at the whim of men. Like, she is a strong criminal bounty hunter. She's a good guy and she stops bad guys, and this ties into her ability reaction. Anytime a card leaves this battlefield, you may draw a card or reset a card from your hand. She works good with those ambush cards, by the way, and that's to represent that she collects bounties. So whether she kills a card or something else does, you may draw. Now, it used to actually be that she would only get this effect when she defeated a card, but that felt so limiting for what can often be a minor effect. So we opened it up so that anytime a card leaves this battlefield, she gets a benefit from it. And so yeah, so this is really good with ambush and reset cards. Pair those together and you do well. And that is Pocahontas. The Queen of Hearts. A lot of people love this artwork here. This evil vampire queen rules over Wonderland and its denizens. Oh, sorry. I lost the tense of this sentence. This evil vampire queen rules over Wonderland and its denizens hope for a hero to save them. Well, the hero is Alice. So this is the Queen of Hearts. Let's talk about her ability real quick. Well, she's a vampire queen, but I didn't want to put that in the title, one, because that's too long, and whatever. We specify that she's a vampire both in the art and in another card. Her ability is tactical, damage shift your cards. She's a vampire. She's all about blood. She can transfer blood back and forth. That's all that ties into. But I want to talk about the artwork a bit, because I just said that I wanted my characters to be empowering, which part of that means not just having them look sexy for the sake of it. And one thing that I told Nevaeh was, I said, okay, for this card we're gonna do kind of the cliche of sexy, seductive vampire, but as Nevaeh, the artist, being a woman, I said to her, I want you as a woman to illustrate what you consider sexy, not what me or a man considers sexy, what you as a woman would consider sexy, and this is what she came up with. And man, I think she knocked it apart. A lot of people love it. First of all, she just incorporates some of this classic Alice in Wonderland queen looks, incorporating the hearts, but pairing it with the fact that she's just a vampire. She's got the vampire teeth and sort of this gothic look to her cards. I mean, what more can I say about this piece of artwork? Just fantastic. And then cap it off with she's drinking a goblet of blood and it's trickling down there. Just, to me, just among her greatest of works, and that is the Vampire Queen of Hearts. Oh, strategy wise, I mean, she damage shifts. A free damage shift on your turn. It's just a tactical ability, quite powerful. That's why she's a 3. Just the strategy is she helps you keep your important cards alive. That simple. You pair this with any kind of healing, and you're gonna keep your cards in play for a long time. Queen of Hearts. Rapunzel. This is another card that the artwork always makes me laugh, just because the idea is just funny. Unjustly incarcerated in a horrible insane asylum, her hair became a living weapon for her revenge. So when we were trying to design, when I was trying to design this character, Rapunzel, girl locked in a tower and a hero needs to save her. Well, I didn't want to do the hero needs to save her bit. That's for sure. I wanted her to save herself. Well, I didn't want to do the usual tower thing and medieval stuff, so we made her more modern day, and she's a person that was incarcerated in an insane asylum, because in modern day, and I guess that's the other than prison, that's where you lock people away. So that is Rapunzel, and Nevea did just a great job giving her sort of a unhinged, insane look. And the hair grows out, and it is like prehensile, and she's using it to envelop the people that have put her there. This is not just a innocent intern. This is one of the people that put her there, if you're wondering. And what's her ability? Play. Select a card and play, and you may reduce its melee and flank values to 0 until the end of the turn. So this completely nerfs a card down to the ground. And like other cards that we've seen before, like Little Mermaid and Bloody Mary, she's like this to the utmost degree. She puts something down to 0. This card is all about ensuring that you get that one real good combat turn so that you can eliminate an opponent's card. And I've seen this card really swing a game in favor of another character. So don't sleep on the fact that this is a one use card as far as the effect, because then it'll stay in play and be a combatant for you. But very powerful card, and you wanna, I mean, what do you pair this with? It pairs with anything. This is more of a mid game. You want to have other cards in play. This benefits from you having other cards already in play, so that you can have that surprise turn where you nerf a card all the way down, and then your other cards rush into attack. Mind you, she can also join in an attack because she's going to be in play at that point, and she can attack. So a very good surprise beatdown for your opponent, and that is Rapunzel. We got Red Riding Hood. Scarred and left for dead by the big bad wolf, she became a werewolf hunter to exact her vengeance. Here I wanted to go a little cliche. We wanted to do Little Red Riding Hood, but we didn't want to do just a little girl that's trudging through the woods. She's older now as a fearsome werewolf hunter. And as we can see, she has battle scars. And I like to zoom in because people don't actually get to see the details on her face. Where she's got the scar, she's got a damaged eye here, even on her body, and yet she continues battling on. She's not afraid of the elements or fearsome beasts. She's gonna go after her quarry, and that ties into her ability Ongoing. This card gains +1 towards combat rolls for each damage token on it. Now most cards have 3 health, so at best most of the time she'll have 2 damage on her, which will give her +2, making her a 2/5. One of the only cards in the game that goes above a 4 in its flank stat for a player, and that's quite powerful. However, she is teetering on the edge of being, being eliminated. So what does this card pair with? Well, any kind of damage shifting, damage blocking. Pinocchio is good with her, protecting her from dying, from one turn, from getting damage when she's down to 1 health. So and keep her in flank. Keep her in flank all the time. She will attack with a 5, and very few cards, or your opponent's limited in how many attacks to get her from there. So yeah, that's the strategy there. Get her in flank and protect her with other cards, and she can hit quite hard. And that is Red Riding Hood. Also, of note is a friend of mine who's a model and also a filmmaker of horror movies was the model for this character. I wanted to pay homage to her, and we put her in the game. All right, we got the Scarecrow here. So this is going back to Wonderland. This is the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, and it's a tongue twister. An amnesiac assassin created by the Wicked Witch. He goes on a quest to get his memories back. So he was an assassin created by the Wicked Witch, part of her army, but part of it was they erased his memories, right? He doesn't have a mind, he doesn't have a brain, and so he wants to get his memories back after escaping from the witch. So what is his ability? Combat. This card may make a melee attack against any card in a support position. Support often is when your opponents have your cards there. They tend to usually either be very weak because they've damaged, so your opponent puts them in support, so they're good to attack, or they have some kind of really good ability that works from support. Scarecrow is kind of a counter to that. He's able to melee attack those cards using his melee stat. So he's very good being up front because he's a 4 melee, but then he can also attack the back line. And that plays into his idea of he's an assassin. As far as the artwork, I just love the Plague Doctor look, and here he's an assassin with poisonous claws. So poison, Plague Doctor mask. That's just the motif that I wanted to go with, just to do something a little bit creepy, and I wanted the Scarecrow character to look creepy, and that's what we went with. So Scarecrow of Oz. The Sea Witch. This is the enemy of Little Mermaid. So the Wicked Sea Witch. Her powerful magic grants wishes, but with cruel caveats, as she strives to rule the undersea kingdom. So this card was a challenge to create visually, or at least the idea of how it would represent, because when people think of the Sea Witch, they think of a particular one from a particular animated movie, and that is a copyrighted character that you cannot use. You cannot use the name. They gave that character a name and cannot use that. But the Sea Witch, the original Little Mermaid story, is in the public domain. So I don't remember. In fact, I don't remember the Sea Witch being described of how she looked in the original story. So we wanted to come up with our own thing. And I started thinking of what are dangerous sea creatures that are uncommon. And we came up with deadly, I think it's a man of war, but basically a deadly jellyfish. And Nevaeh just again killed it with the look of this character, making a kind of wizard queen that's a jellyfish at the same time. Come on, she just killed it here. And I wanted to zoom in because a lot of people miss the fact that she's got actually this hair underneath her cap here, and it flows down, but it also sort of blends in with the look of her robes here. That also, if you've seen jellyfish, they have these sort of ribbons that come down. Just absolutely fantastic. And this purple color scheme, I think Nevaeh came up with that. Chef's kiss there. What's your ability? Ambush. Negate a card effect except play and death effects. That card effect cannot be used this turn. So this is quite powerful and can block almost any effect, again, except play and death effects. And the reason was because most of those cards with those effects, that's their whole thing. So I didn't want this card to just completely negate cards that are their whole thing. So, but there's plenty of other card effects that this can negate, and that can do that, and making this quite useful. Again, as many ambush cards, you pair this with cards that let you reset cards in your deck, and you will have this up quite often. That's the Sea Witch. Oh, another queen here. We got the Snow Queen. She executes. Let's back up for a second. So the Snow Queen from the I think the original story was called the Snow Queen, right? The fairy tale, the Snow Queen, that was turned into a fun Disney animated movie. I said the D word, didn't mean to say that. And so we wanted to do a queen character, and I was inspired by the White Walkers from a certain TV show, and a queen character from another animated movie, and we sort of blended them together because I wanted the character to kind of seem a bit off-putting, because in the original story the Snow Queen was not nice. She was not the good guy, she was the bad guy. She executes travelers, and that's where we're gonna go into the flavor text, which I love. She executes travelers lost in her frozen domain. They beg for mercy, but she just can't let it go. And what's her ability? Play. Reset any card in play. So this lets you take any card, put it on the bottom of its deck. This is supposed to represent that she's sort of freezing it, right? She's putting it away for a while. You can use that on your cards or on opponent's cards. Most of the time you're going to use it on your cards, because it essentially works as healing the card but also resetting its effect if it has a play effect. And generally you want that rather than your opponent getting it. However, in a pinch, if you really need an opponent's card out of the way, you can use this effect. Pairs well, like many cards, it pairs well with resetting. Particularly if you want to be able to reset one of your cards and then get it back quickly, that is what that's good for. But otherwise, just a solid good card. Snow White. Now I can say, because I've been told, that the artist of the game, Nevaeh, this is one of her favorite pieces that she worked on. And let's go into the flavor text. Sick from a poison apple, she became an apothecary to aid in a war effort against a wicked queen. All right, so we didn't go with the usual story per se, and here she's just not like just some girl in the forest with animals and, you know, 3 dwarves, you know, or 3, why did I say 3 dwarves? 7 dwarves. We didn't do all that. We made her a cool plague doctor, an apothecary, and she's got poisons. She's got potions of healing and poison, and it ties into her ability here. Play in any order. You may damage any card and you may heal any card. And the reason we put it here that says in any order is just because you can... It may, doing these effects may trigger a bunch of stuff, so I wanted to give the player the capability to sort of mold that in the best way that would work for them, rather than have these sort of random effects happen. And really, that's all that is. That's how that ties into that she can damage any card, right? So you can use, she gets to use her poison apples and also her healing apples. That's how it ties thematically. What does this work with? Well, this is more of a helper card, and this like goes in any deck because it damages and it heals, the 2 things that are very much the most important in any game. So she tends to be a high pick just for that. Yeah. Svelte here, a malicious presence that creeps around dark woods, confusing and preying on lost wanderers. So this was based on a more modern urban legend character that was in the public domain, and then it became unclear if the character was in the public domain, and so we just sort of created our own character that was an homage to that, a sort of scary faceless specter in the forest that kills lost wanderers. So what's her ability? Ambush. After any die is rolled in combat, re-roll it. So this is sort of to represent that she can confuse people. So a lot of people tend to like to use this card against their opponent, even though you can use it against any die roll. I often see people use this against the opponent, but it works thematically. She's confusing them, re-rolling their die. That's why this card is a 1. It's hard to tell if that's gonna be a great or bad thing for you. Generally, it's a good thing in that most of the time I see people use it when they roll a 1. They use this to re-roll that. Like any ambush card, again, pair this with reset abilities and ability to reset your deck, and you'll be good. Now, mind you, one thing I meant to mention about reset and ambush cards, you don't actually want to have a lot of them in your deck, and I'll cover that when I'm playing the gameplay videos. You'll be able to see that why it's not good to have too many of these cards in your deck. All right, we got the Tin Man. We're going back to the land of Oz. The Tin Man was a war weapon of the Wicked Witch. After a major defeat, he was left to rust away. So this is part of the Wicked Witch's war effort. She wanted to make war machines. She tried making super soldiers. She tried to make assassins. They ran away, so she made war machines, and they did all right. This one here in particular was defeated, and he was just left to rust. And but unlike the other ones, he had gained some kind of sentience, and has wandered off to just sort of find his own way through the world. He is put off by the fact that she left him to rust, and he's learned that through Dorothy, meeting Dorothy, he's learned that what the Wicked Witch is doing is not good for the land, and he decides to help out. And yeah, we wanted to just make it look like some kind of war machine, a little bit of an homage to a certain video game, and that was the effect. That was the look we were going for. Its ability: play. You may damage any card. If you do damage this card afterward, this is similar to a card that we had in Vanishing Point, which was Juvia Valiente. It's very similar, except this card is a bit more limited in that effect. It just does a damage once, where Juvia could actually do it more than once. This one's just a variation of that. This guy's good, just good if with any kind of, if you're going with a damage heavy theme, this guy is good. So if you have other cards that deal damage to the opponent, this could be really good because you can front load a lot of damage on your opponent. Likewise, or in the reverse way, cards with if you have some healing and damage shifting on your side of the field, this will be really good because it can be almost like a free damage against your opponent. So even though this is just a level 1 card, I would say you should always consider this, because gaining free instant, not free, but getting some instant damage that's targeted is quite useful. So that is the Tin Man. All right, and this one is going so long, this video. We got Tinkerbell. We're back to Neverland. A highly talented mechanic and saboteur, she joins the fight against the vile sky pirates of Neverland. Well, we didn't want to do the usual cute fairy Tinkerbell that we've seen in images. We wanted to make a character that was just very self-sufficient, and I came up, I don't know why, thinking about steampunk stuff, I just came up with the idea of a mechanic looking character. And if you look in the artwork here, she's also battle hardened. She's lost an arm in battle, but she replaced it with a steampunk metal one. And what's her effect here? Ambush. If any cards would be healed, negate the effect, and then you may heal any card. Again, this works good with or against the Dracula card, because Dracula's effect technically is a heal. This would trigger off of that. And how does this work with her theme? Well, she's healing, which is like fixing your cards. She's a tinker, she's fixing. And by the way, that's how we, and part of how we ended up on a mechanic, Tinker Bell, if you separate it. So yeah, that is the card there. Not a whole lot there. She's just a way to block your opponent from healing, and you heal your cards. You of course want to pair her with healing effects, not healing effects, reset effects, so you can be able to do this. But if your opponent doesn't have any healing effects, the use of this card goes down. That's why it's only a 1 value. So this doesn't always merit being a high pick on your side of the field. So it is a very niche card. All right, moving on. I think we're almost at the end here. Yep, we've got the Wicked Witch of the West. Made the worst, left the worst for last, best for last. Who knows? With powerful magic, technology, fear, and force, the Wicked Witch aims to conquer the land of Oz. So, because I had decided to put the land of Oz in a sort of diesel punk World War II era genre, I had a hard time with this character, because when you think of the Wicked Witch of the West, you think of the old 1930s movie, was it 1930s? Of Wizard of Oz. And the character is that played the witch there, one of my favorite villains of all time, and I love her portrayal of it. And I just felt that that was so iconic, that how could I reinvent that and still kind of either pay homage or at least just be almost be a tribute to that. And so I had a hard time. This was the last card that I designed for this game because I had a hard time figuring out how to make this look. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, it's a diesel punk World War II era thing. Well, what were the bad guys in World War II? Well, it was a fascist regime. So that's what we did. We made a fascist dictator character. So she's got this military outfit to her and a hat, making her look like she's the leader. We've got the magic here to show that she uses magic and the technology to take over. In the background, we can see the flying monkeys are monkeys with jetpacks. That's the flying part of them. And in the original story of Wizard of Oz, the witch actually was missing an eye, and so we wanted to pay homage to the original story by having her have this eyepiece here, and also it just looks good with the whole sort of diesel punk setting. And to pay an homage to my favorite villain in movies, we did still give her the green skin. I can't remember if she was green skin in the original story. I just can't remember that right now. But we did do that here, and we kind of wanted to make the character look like the famous one, at least the facial features similar to the one in the famous movie, just because I love it so much. And so that's what we ended up here. And that is a Wicked Witch of the West. So what's her ability? Reaction: when this card would be killed by damage, you may move that damage to another of your cards. So essentially, when she gets to damage on her and you damage her again, she throws one of her minions in the way, one of her many flying monkeys. But in the case of the game, it'll be one of your other cards. She can move the damage around. So obviously this would be very good with cards that heal your cards or that prevent damage. Not so much preventing damage, but healing. Oh man, if you can get some healing cards with this card, you will do well, because she is pretty tough to take down, because as long as you have other cards in play, you kind of can't kill her. She keeps throwing other people in the way. And that's it. That was the last card. So wow, this was the longest deep dive, and I hope that was interesting to you. I wanted to take my time with this set because I know for a lot of people this is the one set that they were most looking forward to and are most excited about, because it has characters that they are at least on some level familiar with, and they're not total strangers. So anyway, guys, that'll be it for now. Hey, don't forget, the game is coming out on Halloween. Check down in the description box for links. There won't be a link to the game yet because the game isn't released at the time of filming, but eventually it will. And when it does, the link where you can get it will be down below. But there are links to the YouTube channel and links to the Discord. Join those so you can stay in the loop and be ready for launch day, which is Halloween of 2024. So anyway, guys, that'll be it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.